Today, to support 14,000 businesses that have been impacted, we are establishing a $50 million circuit breaker business relief grant.
A bit more money for BC businesses struggling under COVID-19 restrictions.
There's nothing like a little bit of good peer pressure when you've got organizations that are high profile that are doing things like this.
Are you feeling burned out? If so, has your employer done anything to help? Well, one large Canadian company has announced something for its exhausted workers. And the move has many wondering, will my employer do the same?
It's not straightforward, and you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach in terms of guidance in terms of what Canadians can or cannot do having received 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine.
Public Health Canada says it can't say exactly what people who have had a COVID vaccine can and can't do because there's still too much unknown.
1,293 new COVID-19 cases announced in BC today. This is the most cases in a 24-hour period recorded in BC since the pandemic began. There are 336 people currently hospitalized with COVID-19, including 101 who are in the ICU. Dr. Bonnie Henry saying many of the recent outbreaks coming from workplaces, and with that in mind, she announced new guidelines that would see any high-risk workplaces with 3 or more confirmed cases of COVID-19 possibly temporarily shut down.
When 3 or more workers have COVID-19 at a workplace that's determined by public health to be transmission in that workplace, we have an outbreak protocol that includes testing, that includes investigation of how that transmission might happen. And when it's determined that transmission has occurred at that location, public health will close that workplace for a period of time, for 10 days or longer as needed, as one of the measures to limit spread in that workplace.
The province also updated the vaccination timeline. Anyone 65 or older can now call or book their vaccine appointment online. People between the ages of 55 and 65 living in the Fraser Health and Vancouver Coastal Health region can book at local pharmacies.
Today, to support 14,000 businesses that have been impacted, we are establishing a $50 million circuit breaker business relief grant.
These are places like restaurants and bars and gyms who've had to scale back or stop operations entirely under recent restrictions.
This grant will provide businesses up to $10,000 in one-time funding to help with fixed monthly costs like wages, rent, maintenance, and utilities, or to address unexpected costs such as perishables that restaurants may have purchased.
John with John's Place in Victoria says this will help. With no patio to open up, he's doing everything possible to scrape by.
Oh, no, it helps a lot. See, because we've been 13 months in this, everybody, unless you have a patio and you're doing really well and takeout and the outside, everybody's really living month to month.
In Vancouver, the general manager of Forge says it's a drop in the bucket.
With barely a moment's notice, we've lost over 50% of our workforce. All of the front of house staff, unfortunately, are on furlough. We've got some people in the kitchen, some great staff that just are not able to come in.
This new grant is on top of money already available for businesses, Callan says, and you will be contacted if you've already applied for one of those. But if not, it's simple.
It will be scaled according to how many employees you have. Even if you're a yoga studio and you have just yourself that works in that, there's dollars available for you. And if you have 160 employees and you've been impacted, there's dollars available for you as well.
But for businesses shut down or without licenses because they've broken COVID-19 regulations, no dollars for you. For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yusta.
To be perfectly honest, there's nothing more precious these days than time off.
Offering those kinds of opportunities for your employees shows that you care.
It's a nice gesture. It's a small step forward.
An extra paid day off. That's what RBC is offering all of its employees to combat burnout this year. The step has many people looking towards their own employers, wondering what more can be done to curb worker exhaustion.
It really does start with those role models saying culturally in our organization, not only is it lip service, We truly believe that this needs to happen.
Workplace expert Debbie Carew says she's happy to hear a large company like the Royal Bank of Canada is offering the extra paid day off. She suspects the move could lead other employers to follow suit.
There's nothing like a little bit of good peer pressure when you've got organizations that are high profile that are doing things like this. So whether it's paid days off or things as it relates to parental leave, or another one that I saw that RBC is doing now is they're giving all their employees access to the meditation app Headspace.
The main thing here is that the organization is sending a clear message like we care. And I think that it might actually have a bigger impact than just giving people the day off.
Ika ten Brumel-House, an associate professor of management and organization studies at SFU, says offering one extra day off is a step in the right direction, but feels there are other avenues employers need to look at to curb burnout.
If you look at the causes of burnout, it really is the work often itself. So I think if we really want to help employees with preventing burnout, we should look more closely at what is the job that you're doing.
Vancouver-based counselor Dr. Natasha Ghosh says she's noticed burnout on the rise during the pandemic and believes periods of rest for employees can have some major benefits.
Productive rest can be really important when we are constantly under pressure. A lot of research shows that we're actually less efficient in the work that we do. It takes us longer to do the same job. Our working memory is also less efficient. We are more forgetful.
We took the question to social media. When it comes to work, are you feeling any burnout right now? And of the nearly 500 people who responded, 83% said they are feeling at least a little burnt out. Carew emphasizes this is something that needs to be addressed by employers far more often.
If you want to retain your workforce and you want to keep people productive and engaged, you're going to need to do these things.
In New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
A new survey is shedding light on the recent rise in anti-Asian racism in our province since the start of the pandemic. A study of Asian British Columbians shows that 83% believe that racism is a serious problem in BC. Over 3/4 of respondents indicated that racism has had a negative impact on them personally, with 18% experiencing major negative impact. 1 in 4 had overheard a racist comment directed at them at some point in the past year. And about the same number said they had experienced a racial comment on social media.
It's the one thing people who have had a COVID vaccine want to know. So what exactly can and can't they do? The CDC in America has provided guidelines for safe activities for vaccinated people, but the Public Health Agency of Canada says there's still too many unknowns, including how effective the vaccine is at preventing spread, how long vaccine protection will last, what the local outbreak situation is on the ground where you are, and how effective the vaccine is at providing protection in a wide population.
We know no vaccine's 100% effective. So let's say you have a vaccine, 2 doses, you have a 90% effectiveness. I think on an individual level, that's great. You can go around, wow, I protected, 90% protection. That's great. But if you look at a population level, think about it. That means that you have 100 people vaccinated. For every 100 people vaccinated, 90 actually will have the protection of the vaccine. But unfortunately, there would be 10 people that, even though they're vaccinated and thinking that they're protected, actually the vaccine wouldn't work for them, and they would still be susceptible to, getting COVID-19, and then, if they got it, getting sick and transmitting to others.
Epidemiologists have said if Canada can reach around 60 to 80% immunity in the general population, that would be enough to stop the worst of the pandemic. At that level, the crisis in hospitals and ICUs would be relieved and explosive spread could be curbed. There's also growing concern that some variants of COVID, including B117 and P1, might show resistance to the vaccine. But Dr. Howard New says that can't be proven yet.
We don't necessarily have the evidence here to show that vaccines are not effective against any of these strains or variants of the virus. And so I think it's important to continue with our vaccination program.
Meanwhile, Canada's first shipment of COVAX vaccines has arrived, around 317,000 doses. So far, 10.5 million doses of approved vaccines have arrived in Canada, enough for just over a quarter of our population to get their first shots. Canada's deadline for vaccinating everyone who wants a vaccine is the end of September. Public Health couldn't say if that date will move forward, but seemed optimistic.
I think it depends on a number of factors, but certainly if provinces and territories adhere to a 4-month interval, and the flow of vaccines, as I indicated, is positive or remains the same. The demand for vaccines from Canadians remains high, then I can't see why we wouldn't be able to accelerate that. But I'd be speculating about a specific date.
Meanwhile, there's still no update on the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine. Approved for Canadian use last month, Public Services and Procurement says they're still in talks with the manufacturer and isn't able to provide a delivery schedule just yet. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.
Doubts over AstraZeneca grow as more countries discourage young people from getting the shot. What should young Canadians who've already received their first AstraZeneca dose do now?
Homicide investigators were on the scene in Abbotsford today investigating the Lower Mainland's latest homicide. Police were called to a homeless camp in the area of Riverside Road and King Road at around 10:15 p.m. Wednesday night. When they arrived on scene, they found a 35-year-old man in a tent suffering from stab wounds.
Our victim is a man, 35-year-old man. His name is Robert Nelson. Okay, and right now we are doing everything we can to find out more about Mr. Nelson and his background, why he was here last night. But this is the part where we need the help of the community. So as you can tell, there's a lot of vehicles coming and going right now, and we're hoping there were vehicles last night traveling through this area, and hopefully vehicles with dash cam video, or just anybody who was out here in this neighborhood. There are, residences here, and if you were out here and you saw or heard anything suspicious, or if you have video, certainly we need to speak with you. Please contact us. Please contact your Abbotsford Police Department.
A scan there revealed a huge blood clot, so he was transferred over to ICU, where unfortunately he died.
The regulators were able to spot this extremely rare event
that impacts people to the tune of 1 to 5 per million.
Chances are so small.
They were 99.9% sure this was due to the COVID vaccine.
No, I'm not concerned about the Astrazeneca. I'm desperate to get my vaccination, regardless of which one I get.
Many voicing confidence in the AstraZeneca vaccine a day after European regulators said blood clots may be a rare side effect. Following that development, more countries are now only using the shot in older people who are most at risk of dying from COVID-19. Cases of the unusual, sometimes fatal blood clots have mostly been associated with younger people.
Va ahora a pivotar en relación a la vacuna Astrazeneca.
Spain's health ministry has decided to only give the shot to those aged 60 to 65. In Italy, South Korea, and the Philippines, AstraZeneca will now too only be offered to those 60 and over. Australia has paused the vaccine's use in people under 50, while in Belgium, the cutoff is 56. This 68-year-old woman said she had doubts before getting AstraZeneca, but after seeing her brother struggle in the ICU, she says she'd rather be vaccinated. In England, the sister of a man who died from a post-vaccination blood clot told the BBC she feels the same.
My brother was extraordinarily unlucky. But even given the situation our family's in, I would strongly encourage everybody to go ahead and have the vaccine.
In Britain, people under 30 are being offered an alternative over the clotting concerns.
For under 30s, it is still safe to have the AstraZeneca jab. But if you want to, you can have the Pfizer or Moderna jab instead.
AstraZeneca isn't currently being given to Canadians under 55, but some have already received their first dose. Now, health officials today didn't directly say if those younger Canadians should go ahead with their second shot, but they have reassured that there have been no blood clots in Canada, and they suggested we could be mixing and matching vaccines in the future.
Health Canada is looking at the data, and then NACI will also look at the data as it continues to evolve, and they'll make the best recommendations for what we could or should be doing for the AstraZeneca two-dose regime. For the time being, I think that that folks are fine.
Karen Ciolin, City News.
Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.